Me Field 3.
Me Field 3.
That's right.
She went and got married while I wasn't looking. Anyway, welcome. We're glad to have you here. This is our monthly Real Guitar Live, and I've got some great stuff for you today, and we're going to answer all your questions. Just to give you a quick rundown how this goes, first I'm going to give you a little presentation. Actually, we're both going to give a presentation, and I think it's a great one. It's something that I need reminders of, how to keep learning guitar fun. And it's not a straight line, obviously. Mm-hmm. Also, we're going to answer questions after that, and I'm hoping you'll have some questions live, but I've got a few that have been submitted ahead of time as well. And then finally, we'll do a drawing, and our members who have completed the 20 practice sessions for the month will be entered in a drawing, and we'll give away a $50 Amazon gift card. That's members of our Real Guitar Success. Yeah, I think my tongue's still warming up. First significant talking I've done today yet. Anyway, to start off, I want to show you this cool guitar that we got here at the Starland School of Music in the Bay Area. It's a trans-acoustic. Did I say that right?
Yep.
They have to keep reminding me. It has a built-in reverb and a built-in chorus. It's a Yamaha trans-acoustic. So this is the regular sound. Then when I turn on the trans-acoustic part, it has a bit of reverb. Listen, see if you can hear it.
So cool.
Is that wild?
Such a cool party.
I sound like I'm live in concert, just playing by myself. Well, anyway, I'm going to use it. I'm going to leave the reverb on for this presentation. Excuse me. How to keep learning guitar fun. Now, we don't have the exclusive advice on this. Probably you guys have a lot of ideas too. So please, let us know your ideas. We'll share them with everybody. And you can always add them in the comments too, so people could read it later. I'm hoping to get a few more ideas for myself because I go up and down. And you know what? Having a trans-acoustic guitar would, at least for a little while, make practicing a little more fun.
Absolutely.
But like anything else, it'll get old after a while, and I need something else to keep things going.
Yeah.
So one of the most important things I've found that I can keep working on is setting short-term goals. Now, I'm not talking those big, long goals like, playing, a year from now at an open mic or completing an album that takes me about a year or so. I'm talking short-term goals like 2-3 weeks, maybe a month at the most. Some of the goals that I set for myself are like, I'll do an exercise and I'll make a little chart, and I want to get that exercise up to a certain speed. So I'll measure it with the metronome, and I'll start off at one speed, and then over a period of maybe 2 weeks, let's say, I'll keep tracking my speed every time I practice. Now I find myself looking forward to, I want to get down there and see if I can push it up to that next few numbers on the metronome. I also find I'll practice a little longer because I feel like I'm getting into it. I go, just another few times I could get this up another notch or so. And measuring it gets the juices flowing a little bit. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't want to go too long because it'll get old. So 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, depending on the exercise. Another short-term goal I like to do is to work on a song, either original or something else, and post it on YouTube. So, knowing I'm going to do it, let's say, in 3 weeks, I want to practice that song every day. It gives me incentive to want to look good.
Right. That's a good idea.
So it depends on the song. Sometimes, a couple of days I can get it up to snuff. But if it's something more complicated that I haven't played in a while, it's going to take me maybe a few weeks. Mm-hmm. So I'll set myself a date. I'm going to post it on YouTube, and then I'll start working on it and give myself enough time. Yeah. I'd recommend everybody else, you can post stuff on YouTube, even just to mark your progress. It's kind of a neat way to eventually look back. Let's say you post every other week or something, a video. Now it gives you something to work for, but also a year from now you go back and say, look at my first videos 9 months ago, and look what I'm doing now. You can see your progress, and that'll give you a shot of adrenaline.
That's pretty fun.
One of the goals I like to set kind of once a year is I'll do my 30-day challenge, I call it. What I do is I make this little chart, and I put it on the wall, and it's just 1 through 31, it's little boxes. So the idea is I'm going to practice for 30 days, and without a break, without missing one. So what I'll do is I'll practice. I usually set a reasonable amount of time. I can always practice more. I'll say 15, 20 minutes. And once I get practicing, I'll often do more than that. But if I can just get 15 minutes in, I get to put an X in the box. So I start seeing the X's. And by the time I get to 5 or 6, I don't want to stop. Because, see, the deal I made with myself is if I miss a day, I have to start over from the beginning. And I don't want to start over. So 30 days, you know, I can pretty well. There's been a few times where I had to start over, but for the most part, I'm going to do at least that 15 minutes and probably going to be longer too. Now, when I get to the end of 30, not only do I feel good like I did this challenge, but I kind of ingrained the habit of practicing. It gets to be easier just because my whole mentality and my body has gotten to the habit of practicing a little every day. So it sort of boosts my whole practice routine. Those are some of my ideas. Can you think of anything?
Yeah. I find one thing that's really helpful is to work on stuff that you like. And I know that that's hard because it's like, okay, there's like a fine line. There's a fine balance. You don't want to go and choose some song that's extremely challenging, extremely difficult that you're just not ready for, because that's going to be the opposite of fun. It's going to be too much hard work. It's not going to feel good when you do it. It can get really like demoralizing and like discouraging. But you can find like really simple arrangements online sometimes of songs that you like. And I find that that's one way that I keep my students really like actively involved in the fun of playing ukulele, or any instrument really, if you just find things that are at least somewhat interesting to you to work on. Because method books and just following like a nice strict course of what you're learning can get really boring. Yeah, so I think that that's a big one for me. Felix, what do you do for playing guitar for fun?
Yeah, listening to you all, I'm thinking about right now what's got me very inspired is this course on West African guitar styles that I'm playing and I'm looking into.
Oh, interesting.
That actually keeps me playing because it's a style of music that I've loved for a long time, but I haven't been able to find a lot of books or people able to teach me that. So I found that. I'm like, oh my God, I finally found something I want to learn, just like what you're saying. And I'm able to kind of like break it down and take my time with it and have a goal of like, okay, these patterns are pretty hard. But if I slow it down and make these goals of where I want to get it, you know, practice by practice, I'll be able to get that speed there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you feel like it encourages you to practice more when you're working on stuff that you actually like?
Yes. Oh my goodness.
Like and care about?
Yes.
I think it reminds me of another thing that I do is just find something new to work on.
Yes.
And it is a balance because I don't want my students as well as myself to try something that's so out of my experience that I can't even get it close.
Yeah.
Or by trying to get it close, I get some weird tension and habits in my hands. I saw that a lot with beginning students. They want to play a song they love, and they'll try so hard. It never quite sounds right, but they create tension and strange habits trying to stretch. So nothing is black and white. It's kind of finding that right place. A little bit stretch from where you're at, give you some incentive. I just recently I saw a guitar player who was doing this finger picking pattern, and so I've been trying to figure it out. I won't try it because I'm not there yet. But it's something that I look forward to trying again because I know I'm going to get a little bit better. Probably it'll take me several weeks to get the hang of it. But it's inspired me to practice.
That's awesome.
At least to keep coming back at it a little at a time. And then that's another thing I want to emphasize. I think of it kind of like a mind trick. I make myself practice for 10 minutes. Now, if I only did 10 minutes a day, it'd take a long time to get that finger picking pattern.
Right.
But I know, this is what I call a mind trick, I know if I sit down for 10 minutes, it's probably going to end up longer.
Yeah, exactly.
And sometimes it ends up quite a bit longer, sometimes just a little longer, or even the 10 minutes. But I know that if I just get myself through that 10 minutes, the overall amount of time I'm going to practice is a lot more than 10 minutes a day.
Yeah. You know what? I actually, I just thought of this, and I just remembered that I did this like to help me reach my goals. I had 2 glass containers, one filled with marbles and the other empty. And every time I did the thing I said I was going to do, I took one marble and put it inside the empty bowl. And on the outside of the empty bowl, I had a little paper, and it said 5 marbles, and then I wrote down a little prize that I get. 15 marbles, another prize I get. 20 marbles, another prize I get. And it was a nice way for those of us who may not, if you don't have, 10, 20 minutes a day, and you're like, I'd love to start with 10. I know I can't even do that right now. And that's okay. But doing the marble trick is a nice way to kind of keep yourself accountable and you're working towards something. So, you know, like, I know that's a common thing I've seen people do for like weight loss. You move a marble for every pound that you lose, and after X amount of pounds, you get like a massage. You get to get a haircut, or you get to go on a date night, or whatever it may be. So doing that for music could be a cool thing too. If you're like, I met my practice goal today, move one of those marbles into the new one, and then, you know, maybe your 100th marble is the transacoustic is your prize. You can get you a cool transacoustic. Or maybe it's that you get to pick some new picks, or you get to treat yourself to like a seminar or something, or treat yourself to being an RGS member for a month or 2 months or a year.
Oh, you know, that actually reminds me of something. And I've done this myself many times, is get some lessons. Now, even if you've had lessons, you might even try lessons in something different, something new. But if you're still in the early stages, get some kind of structure, either a private teacher or online course, something where you're having to do things step by step. Just having a program, something that looks like a ladder where you just have to go step by step. Because often what's demotivating about practicing is you don't have much hope of making any significant progress. Yeah. But by having a plan that's step by step, it's not about, oh, I'm going to go from here to playing wild guitar. It's going from here just to here.
Exactly.
And that's a lot easier to get motivated about.
Absolutely. I think another thing that's helpful is see if you can find opportunities to play with others. I know that's one that you've mentioned to me before. It just makes a difference. Even something as simple. Here's a good story. I have 2 adult students that they've just stopped taking uke lessons with me. They're best friends. And they both have little kids, and one of the things that they want to do is like to be able to play music for their kids, sing along and stuff. And so one week they came in and I said, so how was your week? I always check in. How was your week practicing? She said, you know, I didn't practice the stuff you gave me all that much. I said, okay, it happened. She says, but I got to play music with my kid. You know, it's like my kid wanted to sing this song from whatever Disney movie, so I just looked up the chords and I felt confident enough that I'm like, I know 2 or 3 strums. These chords are familiar to me. I can do this, you know, and she had a lot of fun. She didn't do my assignment, which I was like, awesome, don't do my assignment. If you had more fun and you played for 30 minutes not doing the thing I told you to do, then great. You were playing for 30 minutes and doing something that was really fun. So finding opportunities to incorporate your music into like other social parts of your life, I think is really cool. Even if you're just going to the park with your friends, take your guitar with you. Look, see if any of them know some chords. Look up some chords online, some favorite songs you guys can sing along. I've actually learned a lot of stuff doing that.
When I was a younger man, I started playing in church, and my motivation really was just to have a place to play. And I knew that, because I didn't want to look foolish, I'm going to practice every time the church service was coming up.
Right.
I got to really enjoy it. And it was a lot more than just getting to practice my guitar because of the community and the shared values. But I would encourage, find ways to play and find ways that make sense for you. For me, that made sense. Jamming with friends is a lot of fun for me. But at the same time, I don't like to play often with somebody who's much, much better than because I feel like I'm weighing them down or I'm boring them.
Yeah.
I can learn things that way, but I like to keep it a mix. Sometimes play with people that aren't as good as me, better, somewhere in the same ballpark. Keep a kind of a mix going.
Yeah.
So I just discovered recently something. Well, I thought about it, actually. I didn't just discover it. All my life, I found myself inspired to play guitar by either watching a movie or reading a book about a guitar player, or just somebody who's really good. So I really started practicing a lot after I saw Bohemian Rhapsody.
It's my movie.
You know, I'm not really a Queen fan either. I mean, I was brought up with them, but watching the movie made me like Queen more. Just seeing their story, and of course it made me want to go play some guitar, and not Queen songs. It just inspired me to want to do guitar. I've heard the movie Crossroads is inspiring like that. I actually put that at somebody's suggestion on my list of things to watch. I haven't watched it yet. Have you watched Crossroads?
Who's that one
It's
about?
I know it's got Steve Vai in it. It's about a blues guitar player, Crossroads.
Okay, I have to
So
look it
I
up.
don't know more because I haven't watched the movie yet.
Yeah.
But I've been listening to the memoirs or autobiography, I think he calls it memoirs, of Willie Nelson. Again, I wasn't really brought up a country fan, but it's really inspired me to practice, and actually inspired me to learn a little more country guitar at the same time. I'm not finished the book, but so far I've gotten a lot of bang out of it.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
I would love to hear you guys if you have any movies that you could recommend or books that you think are inspiring, and maybe put them in the comments so we can all share in. How about you? Are there any books or movies that inspired you?
A couple of them actually. Let me think. Most recently we saw the Elton John movie, the one that just came out, Rocket Man.
I've heard. I haven't seen it yet.
It was really different than what I expected it to be. I'm not going to give any spoilers away.
Okay.
It was different than what I thought it was going to be, but I did enjoy the movie a lot, and it really inspired me to kind of think about the music that I'm involved in and think about my commitment to music. And you really learn a lot about Elton John, and about his upbringing with music, and it sort of inspired me and reminded me that, like, you know, this really amazing thing means a lot to a lot of people. It really does. And so it's cool to either, you know, even if you're not ready right now to make a commitment to do it, to just be a part of that global musical community is what that really brought to light for me. And it totally did inspire me. And I was kind of like, oh, I should do something with my music. I want to do more. It made me want to do more with my music, because as it stands, I pretty much just teach and play it for fun. But I was
teach.
I should do something more with my music. I should have more fun with my music. And so for that reason, you know, I ended up loading up on a bunch of books. I have about 40 different ukulele books sitting in the office right now, including a Queen one, which I got after Bohemian Rhapsody.
A Queen ukulele.
Yeah, it's a really great book, and there are so many cool arrangements in there. I love it, love it, love it. So that'd be probably the most recent. And then there are
put
other,
that on my list.
I'm a huge fan of like biopics and stuff, so I love to watch movies about musicians and just constantly observing it. So yeah, that'd probably be the most recent one though.
Any come to mind, Felix?
No, I can think of it. But now I know what I need to see.
Yeah, I know I have more. I just realized how much I get inspired after certain movies, and I'll bet you I come up with a bunch more after this is over.
Yeah, Sharon is on the chat. Hi, Sharon. Says there are lots of inspiring documentaries about guitar players and good bands. One of the best is The Last Waltz.
The Last Waltz? I hadn't heard of that.
Waltz.
Okay.
Okay, cool. The Last Waltz.
I'll look that up. Maybe it's something I could find on Netflix.
Yeah, maybe so. Okay, good. Any other ideas that you want to share?
I think that's enough. I think I'll leave some room for people to add their own ideas. In the meantime, let's go on to answer some questions.
Yeah, and if you have any questions, please type them in the chat. We have a few that folks submitted beforehand, so
we'll start
go through
there.
those. And a few that folks have been submitting since we started, which
Great.
is great. So let's start with the first one here. Says, I started the journey of playing the guitar the last days of January, and I still have fingertip pain in my left hand. Is it normal, or maybe am I doing something wrong? In any case, what could I do to relieve the pain? If it's just a matter of time and I should be going on, you don't need to answer me.
Who wrote that?
I'm not sure how to pronounce it.
Oh, Jaume. I'll say Jaume.
Okay.
Jaume.
Cool.
Hey, thanks for submitting the question. It's a good question, and I'm sure you're not alone. I still actually, I recently started playing more steel string guitar, and I've spent many, many years playing the nylon string guitar, and I'm finding my fingers are a bit sore. I just keep doing it in little bits and pieces and keep coming back at it. I'll actually find when my fingers are sore like that, I'll practice several short times in a day instead of one big, long time.
Right.
A couple of things. First of all, know that it's probably going to get better over time. Your fingers, or at least my fingers, had developed some calluses at first, and then the calluses it doesn't feel like calluses, but fingers desensitized. So even though it's not thick, hard skin, they're still not as sensitive as they used to be. It's subtle, but it makes it easier for me to play the guitar. I don't find any pain on the nylon, but like I said, when I come back to the steel string, I get a little more pain. The other thing, though, I find with a lot of students is they really could benefit from working on how hard they're pressing down. And there's a place where you press and it gets a good clear sound, but many people are pressing harder than that, overcompensating.
Yeah.
And that will add to pain in your fingers. An exercise that I've had students do off and on, not just once and they get it, is to just play a note for a few minutes at a time and keep relaxing until it deadens out, and then press. and see where the note actually sounds clear and where it deadens out. And realize, get the feeling of what it's like to how hard you have to press down to get a clear note. Now, I could easily press much harder and the note sounds the same, but I'm gonna get sore fingers much faster if I press harder. And that's very common. It's very common when students, especially when they're first learning, because they're trying to do something and they don't have, let's say, the perfect hand position. And nobody does when they're first starting out. So they compensate by pressing harder to get the sound.
Right.
But over time, that will hurt your fingers, not just the tips of your fingers, but also hurt your muscles.
Right.
So that's something to try. And I would encourage you to try this exercise and just go on to another note. And do that a little bit each day, maybe for a week or so. And then plan on coming back at that as you feel like you're tensing up again.
Yeah, and a same tip on that. I mean, on ukulele, obviously it's not nearly as intense as it would be for like a steel string guitar, or even a nylon string, just because the strings are so small and thin. But I would say also like know your limits. You don't want to press so hard that all of a sudden, you know, you've got these extremely deep indentations that don't go away for 3 minutes after playing, and it just hurts so bad. I mean, don't push yourself so hard that your hands are just destroyed, because that's not fun. Going back to the fun thing, and it can get really discouraging. So like know your limits. So I agree, you know, doing those kinds of exercises I find in moderation can be helpful, but at the same time don't just like not do it because they're sore, because then you're not going to make any progress at all.
I found some students that got some benefit in addition to what we just talked about by putting on their steel string guitar something called silk and steel. They're softer strings and they're a little easier on the fingers. Now some people like sound, some don't, but if the sound is okay for you, it'll be easier to play. And of course, the longer you play, the more likely your fingers will get tougher. And,
Yeah, definitely.
so that's a possibility.
Let's see.
What's our next question?
Next question is from Alfredo. Alfredo says, what would you recommend for someone coming back to the guitar? What things should I do, and what practice techniques or books should I pick up?
I would definitely recommend, depending on where you left off, I would do a good review of the basics. And quite frankly, I think real guitar success is, I've worked at it for years and years, and there's nothing better. If there was, I would change it and make it more like that.
Yeah.
At least nothing better from my point of view, obviously. And the thing with real guitar success is you can see what I'm doing and I explain everything. It's not just a book where you read the paragraph and you see the picture and you're kind of stuck with not really seeing how the motion goes.
Right.
I'm sure there are other good guitar websites too, but that's of course what I know because that's where I spend my time.
Right.
A good private teacher would be great. The thing is to choose carefully, and if it help, I have some links to how to choose a good private teacher. The thing is, I grew up with teachers who were not very organized, and so I've had some great teachers, but I also realized the downside. I've had teachers that just kind of go from one thing to the next each lesson, and it was entertaining until I realized I wasn't really getting anywhere. I really worked hard to make real guitar success both very step-by-step and logical, and I provide other areas where I throw different levels and different things at students, if they want, to challenge them and keep them learning a variety of areas. I got these actually three-ring circuits going. I have some other step-by-step courses on specific areas if you want to focus on that.
I think that's a great recommendation. Excuse me. I think the RGS is a good one for coming back, and I like that. I mean, you have clear guidance about what to do, but it's not like you have to go through each. Yeah,
you can go as fast or slow as you want.
Yeah, exactly.
The thing is, though, I do find most students need some review, and they'll often pick up some things they didn't get the first time around when they do a review. Yeah. So you can go faster if you want, but you're likely to pick up some ideas and some techniques that you didn't get the first time you learned.
Yeah. Shane, just quick side note back to inspiring movies and stuff. Shane just said, FYI, Crossroads is based around the legend of Robert Johnson.
Ah, Robert Johnson. I didn't know that. Yeah, I know who Robert Johnson is. Acoustic blues guitar player.
I feel like maybe I did see Crossroads. Oh. Now that you're saying
I know it's got the guy who played Karate Kid in it. I forget his name.
Maybe I didn't. I don't know. I know I didn't see it. I watched some interesting documentary recently about a blues guitar player that was really, really good. I'll have to figure that one out, too, and tell you what it was.
In the meantime, that's the next question.
Yeah, next question. We've got David, who says, Hi, Thomas. Can you please
Hi,
talk
David.
about intervals when it comes to chords in a key? What makes for good sounding progressions? Why does a 1-4-5-1 and 1-6-4-5 work so well for songs? Is there a concept behind the mix up, a recipe that works?
So just so everybody's on the same page, he's talking about numbering chords in the progression, and roughly the way we do that. Of course, I have lessons on how to think about this. If you take a scale, let's say a C scale, and you number each note in the scale 1 through 7, and then you build a chord on each of those notes. That's where the number comes from. The C chord, the first one would be the 1 chord. The D, it would actually be a D minor, would be the 2 chord, and so on. E minor would be the 3 chord. So he's saying a 1-6-4-5 would be in the key of C 1-6-4 F and 5, which is a very common sound. Oh, with a little reverb. Two things I think about that, and I'm hoping you can add to this. One is there is sort of, I guess you might call it kind of the science of sound. There's certain tones that tend to like create push and pull. And that's what's happening in progressions, is you're feeling a sense of being drawn to another chord or a dissonance that you want to resolve. So it's natural in a key, if you play enough chords to sound like you're in a certain key. So when I play a C chord and I play the 5, a G in the key, and back to C, now your ear pretty much hears that as being in the key of C.
Right.
You don't have to think key of C. You just know that sounds like the home.
Yeah.
That sounds like the home chord. The 5 chord, the notes in the 5 chord have a natural tendency to feel like they want to go back to that C chord. You can tell there's some tension there. I want to go back there. Finish it. Now, that's one thing. Also, I think it's very real that people have played these progressions so much in so many songs that your ear is used to hearing that.
That's exactly
and
what I
that's
was
what
gonna
you hear
say.
as normal.
That's
That's what
exactly
you
what I was
hear
gonna
as
say. pleasing
because that's what you're used to hearing.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say.
So a progression that might sound off sounds weird. I mean, that doesn't really follow any pattern. But if you heard that enough times, it would start sounding normal and maybe even pleasing to you.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. I think that it's they're just so incredibly common. I often wonder who was the first person to put it together and be like, that sounds about right. Somebody did it at some point in history.
Yeah, I wouldn't know.
It's probably has some roots way back when. Yeah. But either way, we hear it so much and variations of it, right? Slight variations of it. And of those progressions, that it just becomes kind of what sounds and feels good. I mean, granted, there is also a lot of music out there that don't follow those rules.
Yeah.
And that's okay too.
I heard one time somebody say that it makes sense to me, though I wouldn't make the numbers exact. People like music that is roughly 10% different than what they're used to hearing.
Okay.
If it's more than that, it sounds weird to them. So this has to do with advice for songwriters. If it's not 10% different, it just sounds like everything else, and it's kind of like, why should I listen to that? It's hearing the same thing over and over.
Yeah.
But 10% is the area of, it's interesting enough, but there's enough in common that I can grab it. I can get a hold of it. It makes sense to me. So I doubt it's exactly 10%, but that's the idea.
Yeah.
Is that people want something that they can relate to, they're familiar, but at the same time, there's enough to keep it interesting.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. That's a really interesting fact. I like that.
And when you say different, there could be exact same progression, but a different kind of melody or a different tone or a different rhythm. Or there's a lot of different aspects that can make it different.
Yeah, and I was going to say that's actually an important one. I talk about this a lot with my students on ukulele, because when you're playing the uk, because it's such a small instrument and it doesn't have a huge sound, you basically can either play solo stuff, and that sounds really pretty, or you can just strum it and sing, which sounds really good. But if you're just strumming it, any popular song, it's going to be hard to differentiate that song from any other popular song.
That's a good point. No melody.
There's no melody. There's nothing above it. And so I have some students like, nope, I don't want to sing. Nope, I don't want to do finger picking. And I'm like, all right, well, then I'll just teach you some strumming patterns, but just know that one thing I'm going to teach you is going to last you about 50 songs. So you can do that, and we can play 50 of the same song. But, you know, it's important to just acknowledge and recognize that that's a thing. And so if you are composing your own music, keep that in mind. It's okay to recycle chord progressions, but vary your melody. Do some cool, crazy stuff on top of that, or play it in a different order. I mean, there's just so many different variations that you can make on something that already sounds good. That's a good question.
Yeah, something I don't often think about, but
Yeah, me
I
either.
appreciate the kind of bringing it to my consciousness.
Taylor says, why does it take so long for chord changes?
So there's two ways I could take that question. If you're on the call, Taylor, please chime in. Why does it take so long to learn how to play the chord progression?
I take it as I can't move chords from chord to chord quick enough.
Yeah,
That's what I take it as.
That's probably the more common question. Why does it take so long to learn to move from one chord to another? Why does it take so long to learn?
Because it's hard.
Yeah,
It's
you
hard.
weren't born making chords and going from one to the other.
Yeah, it's
So I don't want to discourage anybody because humans are amazingly adaptable. I mean, it's when you really think about it, things that, you know, even walking, if you were to just see a little baby and you didn't have any other reference point, you'd never think they could get up on those 2 feet and start running around.
That's a good point.
You know, we know they do that, but if you didn't know that, if it's the first time, people can play things, you know, on the guitar and any instrument that, you know, I know when I was a kid, I would watch them and think, there's no way my fingers could ever do that.
Right,
But
absolutely.
I can do things now that I would have never imagined I could do.
Totally.
That said, you have to think from not doing it to be able to put the fingers on the chord and then move all those fingers to the next chord, get them just in the right place with just the right amount of pressure in time, in a rhythm that, you know, depending how quick or slow the song is.
Yeah, no.
And then go back to another chord. There's a lot of stuff going on there.
Absolutely.
Of course, once you get good at it, you don't think about it anymore. It's not like you're tracking all the little movements. Your fingers just go there, which is, you know, it's one of the gifts of both being able to play music and of the habits,
Yeah.
kinds of habits that we create for ourselves.
I can tell you an annoying thing I make my students do that help them with that.
What?
Well, it feels annoying in the process of doing it. But I will sometimes have my students literally say out loud what they're doing in the process
Oh,
of changing from
to
chord
really get
chord.
conscious on
Yeah,
it.
I'm going to grab a ook and show you. Okay, so if I just take this ukulele, let's say that I'm having a student go from C chord to G chord. It's a little out of tune, but
Okay. It sounds okay.
yeah. So if I'm here, I say, okay, so what are you doing? Well, my ring finger is on the 3rd fret of my A string. Okay, great. Then I'm going to tell them to go to G chord. So what has to happen? So they say, first I have to lift up my ring finger, then I have to put my pointer finger down on the 2nd fret of my C string, put my middle finger on the 2nd fret of my A string, and put my ring finger on the 3rd fret of my E string. There's a G chord. And I'll literally take a progression, normally only 4 or 5 chords, nothing more than that, and have them talk their way through exactly what their body is doing. Because there's something about that mind-body connection that makes changing chords easier, is just basically that process becomes faster. Your brain says where to go and your hands just go. It's all muscle memory. It's like dance or any other thing that you physically do, or walking. That all came from muscle memory. And so by doing that, you're really forcing your brain to acknowledge and recognize exactly what your body is doing. And then you can start saying, and then you can do it without having to think, okay, lift a finger and put other fingers down, right? So I can say, here I am, now I'm going to put these 2 down, because I know they both got to go, and then move my finger here too. So it's a very tedious thing, but challenge yourself in that way. Just try it, see what happens. Sometimes your brain just needs a reminder of something it already knows how to do.
One other small thing I want to add to this, because I see this mostly with adults, is a kind of a mental aspect. They have a story in their head that
Absolutely.
it's hard. I did it 5 times and it's still hard.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe something's wrong with me. Maybe this is too much work, too boring.
Mm-hmm.
I'd lose the chatter the best you can. Nobody can get rid of it completely.
Yeah.
Just assume it's going to take a while and you're just going to keep working on it until it happens. And it's going to happen if you do that. So that means keep coming back at it and keep coming back at it little at a time, preferably every day, maybe even twice a day if you're just learning a new chord progression. Just do it a little at a time, keep coming back at it.
Yeah.
I've seen so many adults that get hung up on, I practiced it for a whole 3 days and it still doesn't happen. So they're spending more energy on what's wrong with them or why it's not working than just keep at it until it happens.
Yeah, there's a chord on the ukulele, B flat chord, took me 2 months.
Oh.
It's simple. It's a partial bar chord. It's a very simple chord. When I was first learning this took me 2 months. It would sound like this, and then eventually it sounded like that, and then eventually it just became clear and pretty.
Yeah.
Okay. So the moral of the story, Taylor, is just hang in there. You got this. Okay, so now we have some questions from our folks who are actually live with us right now. So David said, I practice regularly with Guitar Gymnasium, at least 15-30 minutes a day. How should I divide my time playing songs and practicing the drills you provide?
So there's no one right answer. I mean, you got to know that. And that's why I don't just make one lesson, and that's all there is. And I've got this several things going on, and it fits different levels and different temperaments. I generally think, and I learned this somewhat the hard way, you need, especially in the early stage, you need something step by step. Mm-hmm. But you'll never get good by just following one little step at a time.
That's true.
I learned this with language. I took years of Spanish, followed the grammar, and after, I got all A's. I didn't do my homework. I could not talk to anybody.
Yeah.
I went to Spain and lived with a family who was instructed not to speak English for 2 weeks, and I was talking Spanish. Now, granted, I had those years of lessons under my belt, and
right.
I probably wouldn't have got there in 2 weeks anywhere near where I did if I hadn't had that lesson.
Yeah.
But if I didn't just push myself to do it, to try things that I felt awkward, that were out of my league, I would never be speaking Spanish. I'm pretty convinced.
Yeah.
So I got these two things going. I got the step-by-step path going in Real Guitar Success, and I got the monthly practice plan, which I keep throwing new things at you and different aspects of playing guitar. So the two kind of work together. Only you know how much tolerance you have for doing something new and different, and how much you really need the kind of step-by-step thing.
Yeah.
You could just do step-by-step and not do the guitar gym until you get to the end of that and then go to the guitar gym. There's also a bunch of different courses. If you find yourself really wanting to work on strumming, there's a course for strumming, a course for bar chords, which is a problem for other people. That said, I would also try learning some new songs. And even, I have songs in Real Guitar Success.
Yeah.
I wouldn't limit to that. I'd go to YouTube. I'd try stuff from friends. I'd find every opportunity that was working for me, using the Real Guitar Success as kind of the foundation. You're going to get the basics in a step-by-step fashion, and you're going to, if you do the guitar gym, you're going to keep something that keeps you off your comfort zone, keep pushing you past your comfort zone.
Yeah, definitely. That's a fair question.
So also depends how much you're willing to practice a course. For most people, if you're willing to practice at least a half an hour, I would do 10 minutes of that in the guitar jam. If you're a beginner, I do at least 10, 15 minutes on the step-by-step, because that will give you a sense of success. You need that. And then try something on your own for the other 5 minutes or so, just a rough idea, percentages. So try something off of YouTube or try making up something. That's what I enjoy doing, making up stuff, and that's what really got me to become a songwriter and create my own CDs, my own music.
Yeah, I think that's great. That's awesome. Okay, we have Anne, who says, I'm still at the goal of getting my pinky to reach that 4th or 8th fret. Been 3 weeks. I need a new pinky.
Yes.
Have one of those in the store. You're funny, Anne. Do the 30-day challenges get harder each month? Because I'm still working on the one from the first month I joined.
No, don't do that, Anne. No, they're not meant to complete one and go to the next one and the next one. No, just do the best you can in the month and then put it away, call it quits, and go on to the next month. They're going to be repeats of not necessarily the same lesson, but the same idea. Keep coming back at different areas and different, they're not graded. They're not getting harder and harder and harder. Matter of fact, you'll find some of them actually get easier, but then I'll throw in something that's a little harder. I would do some exercises consistently, find one that works for you that uses the pinky, and do it as a warm-up every day for the first 3 minutes of your practice. And I would also, if you're in the early stages, I can't really tell where you're at, go through the guitar adventures. It's called the beginner's journey, and do something step by step as well. But the challenges are meant to just give it your best shot. If you really like one and you think you want to come back to it, add it to your favorites. So that way you can always go back to your favorites. But then when the month's over, go on to the next month. Just play it for 10 minutes. Don't try and perfect it. Play it for 15 if you're really into it. That's max. Then move on to the next day.
Yeah. I think that's fair. I'm glad that you asked that, Anne.
I'm glad you asked too.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes me wonder if I should explain more, but I have to think about that. I know people have a low tolerance for wanting a lot of explanation in the beginnings too, so I have to balance things.
Yeah, cool. Okay, we have a comment from France D. I'm not sure if that's the name or not. Bonjour du Québec. Bonjour, bienvenue. Nice subject.
Je ne parle pas français.
You're good. You say I don't speak French.
That's the only.
Mais je parle français. Okay. So one challenge for me, I travel a lot. So I bought a guitarlele that I carry as much as possible, but not always. Then I find it very hard to get back to my routine. Felix has a guitarlele. Felix, this is you.
All right. Well, let's see what the question. What's the actual
So
question?
the question is, I bought a guitarlele that I carry as much as possible, but not always. I find it hard to go back to my routine. Basically, I think going from the guitarlele back to the guitar. And France D, if you're still here, please clarify that a little bit. What exactly is the hard part? Is it that you're traveling and don't have time to practice, or that you're switching from instrument to instrument?
Because I understand going from a guitar to a guitarlele and then back is
Well, the spacing's different.
the spacing's very different of the fretboard of the guitarlele, and so it's hard kind of like trying to equate the practice almost, because you're practicing on this small neck and then you go to a bigger one that you haven't been practicing, the stretching and whatnot. They're pretty much different instruments, honestly.
Yeah.
Even the tuning is supposed to be different.
It sounds like from what you're saying, it probably would be better to get something closer to a full-size guitar for your travels.
Yeah.
I bring my nylon string guitar with me everywhere, and I haven't been refused yet. I bring it on the plane and put it in the overhead.
Likewise, I always take my guitar on the plane.
I saw recently online a guitar that you could take the neck off and pack it and then put it back on. I haven't explored it, so I don't even know if I can recommend it. But
I've seen one. I've seen it, and you just kind of you detach it, and the tension releases, and there's a way to lock the neck again. Yeah.
I've heard of like the travel side, like the traveler guitars. I think Taylor
That
makes
too.
one, Martin makes one.
Yeah, and they're just smaller regular guitars. I got a feeling that going from a travel guitar, even if you went back to your regular, wouldn't be that big of a switch.
Right.
But
No.
the guitarlele is
It's
the
its
size
own
of a
animal.
ukulele.
Yeah.
It's bigger. It's like don't we have one?
We do have.
I think
one.
we have a guitarlele here. But yeah, it's a totally different animal. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you got the whole thing of, just the traveling disrupting. That's, there's no easy answer for that. But
Right.
I have found, because I travel a lot too, that over time, and I've developed routines that I have for traveling and routines for when I'm at home. And I just kind of switch gears. I even write down what I'm going to practice when I have my regular practice routine and then I have an alternative that I use when I'm traveling or when I'm really busy on the project and I can't do my regular practice routine.
That's a good point. I'll have to say I have never once traveled with an instrument and practiced it while I was on the road, ever. I'm also terrible about practicing, so don't listen to me when it comes
Some
to
of my
that.
best practices in the airport waiting for the next plane. And, I've made some friends that way. It's fun.
No,
Yeah.
Talk about an opportunity to talk to
Yeah.
people, huh?
Yeah.
That's
I've
pretty
had
cool.
people come up. One woman came up to me and said, "Oh, it really relaxed me. I'm nervous on the plane. Any chance you could bring it on the plane and play for us?"
Whoa.
Yeah.
Did you do it?
No.
Oh.
That's not part of the
Yeah.
the airplane
Sir, you can't
rules.
do that here.
No,
That's
you
funny.
have to be strapped in.
Fair enough. Before I go to the next question, Tom, who joined us, Tom Snyder.
Hi, Tom.
Hey, Tom.
Hey, welcome. I haven't heard from you in a while.
He says, just a comment back to the fun thing. One thing I enjoy is looking back at things that were hard for me when I started guitar and realizing they're easy now.
Yeah,
Isn't that
that's
a
a
good
good one.
feeling?
I remember having that feeling too. I remember one time I was strumming at the campfire, and strumming was really hard for me. It's a combination of keeping it going and changing chords. But one time I was sitting at the campfire with friends and we were singing. I remember looking down and going, oh, "It's happening!" I wasn't even thinking, and it's going.
That's really funny. That's awesome. It's a good place to be in, for sure. Okay. Peter says, I have a lot of people telling me it's easier to learn to play electric guitar. Is that true?
Boy, we have a music school here with a lot of students, I'll say. Hundreds and hundreds. I don't remember hearing that. No. I will say, just technically speaking, the strings are easier to press down than a steel string guitar.
Right, that part.
But it's the same six strings. Yeah, the action is a little lower, so physically. But, you know, you do have to kind of plug it in to hear a sound, so it's a little more awkward carrying it around.
Yeah.
I don't know about that. I won't say it's not the case, but it's definitely not a common belief here at Starland School of Music.
Any input on that, Felix?
The only thing I could see was like, so when I started out on a classical nylon string guitar, and once I finally did get my hands on an electric guitar, the neck feels so much different. I feel like I was able to access chords and stretches more easily.
Oh, okay.
Because thinner neck and
from a classical
because of the neck profile and the way it feels. But other than that, I think there's not much else that's easier about it.
Yeah.
I started on, I think it's steel string guitar. And when I went to electric guitar, I found it hard because when I plug it in, every time I play a chord, it sounds much worse than on my acoustic. It's because it's louder. So every little, and thinner strings, every little defect was being amplified.
Yeah, it's sensitive.
So on one hand, I could say that's good to practice because you really have to tighten up your technique when you're playing on the electric guitar.
That's a good point. And one thing, I mean, I have parents and people, adults interested in lessons that come in here all the time, and they ask me, well, which one do I start with? What's the easiest? Here's the unsatisfactory answer: is that they're all going to be the same. There's nothing that's easier.
Yeah, there's
or
something's
harder.
easier and something's harder.
Yeah, I mean, they're all going to balance themselves out. My main thing is to go with what you prefer. If you're a rocker and you just want to rock out and like that's what you want to do, you just want to be able to shred, and electric is where your heart is, then go for electric. Yeah. Nothing bad's going to come from that. If you like to do more like pop and like acoustic-y sound and stuff, then do an acoustic. And you can always do both as well. I mean, it's not like you have to choose between the two.
I have had quite a few students say the acoustic hurts their fingers. And they just put lighter, you can even put electric guitar strings on it, or silk and steel. And that generally solves that problem. I'd get both if I were you.
Got it.
But that's me.
Yeah. Before we go to the next question, France D, the one from Canada, about the guitarlele, clarified. I meant when I cannot carry the guitarlele, not practicing at all for a few weeks. It is so hard to get back to my playing. We travel in a small RV and fly to Europe. Guitar is too big.
Yeah. I'd find a way to get a guitar. I mean, that's the way it is.
Yeah.
I mean, I went to a place and I didn't have my guitar, and I went to a local music store and rented one for a week. I mean, you get creative, do what you got to do.
Yeah.
I wouldn't go for weeks without practicing, especially if I wanted to play somewhere.
Yeah, I think it depends on your larger goals. If the intention is kind of like, oh, I'll just kind of play around on guitar and just do it for fun when I can, then just try your best to get back into a routine. But if it's something that you like are really serious about and you're making it like a firm commitment to yourself, then you find a way to make it work. This reminds me of my husband and I getting back into the gym post-wedding. Because before the wedding, we were there every day, and we were on it, and we were serious about it. And then we got very relaxed, and we're going tonight. We're going to the gym tonight. And it's been hard to get back into the routine. It was such a part of the routine. But, you travel, you do things. It's like eating. It's like anything else that you're actively trying to do. So it just depends on your commitment level, really. Because if you can also find a way to make it work. Yeah. Yeah, and if you really, really need to make it work.
I'd say it's practically scientific. If you don't practice for weeks at a time, you're going to have a hard time.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, And again, it depends. If it doesn't matter to you, okay. If, you know, but if you want to see progress, you're going to have to figure out a way to keep practicing.
Okay. Another question from, excuse my pronunciation, Pratibad. I think that's how I would say it. How to play the B major bar chord properly?
B major, like that, or like that, or like that, or like, I think those are the main ones.
Yeah, yep. They said the bar chord, whichever.
Oh, okay.
Those were all.
So, first of all, there is no such thing as the right way to play any chord. There are variations, and some are more useful in some issues than others. This bar chord, I tend to use a lot on electric guitar because it's very easy to move around on electric guitar. Or if I'm playing something right here. See, if I'm all right in here, I'm not going to jump down here usually. But if I'm playing stuff up in here, I don't want to really jump all the way up here either. So this is a common form up in here. It's a partial bar here and a full bar here. If I was playing up in here, this one's probably a little easier. For a lot of people, they start off with a little bar chord. I call it a little bar chord because it only needs 4 strings. Where you put your first finger on the 2nd fret of the 1st string, and then the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th fingers on the 4th fret. I don't hit the 5th string. The partial bar takes a while. Usually this is one of the harder chords for students to get.
Yeah.
But like anything else, if you're not doing bar chords at all, this one's probably a big leap. But if you've been doing bar chords, you might want to practice it a little at a time.
Yeah. It's the age-old bar chord thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like this one. Going from this bar chord to this bar chord.
Yeah. And like I
That's
said,
F sharp.
Yeah. Like I said with the ook at least, I mean, I'm not a guitarist, but I can just tell you from my perspective, it took me like several months just to learn how to do a partial one. So it really comes about persistence and patience, and there are so many resources and tools, even within RGS and all over the internet to help with bar chords. So I just do a little research, take your time.
In the bar chord boot camp, what I do is I address that, but I do it in a step-by-step manner. I do some exercises to work on the bar first, and then on the parts of the bar, and step-by-step build you up to playing the bar chords like that.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Well, I think those are all the questions we have for now. If you guys have some, keep entering them in the chat while we do the raffle, and then we can address any other.
It's time for raffle?
It's time for raffle.
Let's give away
Let's
an
get
Amazon
these
gift
people
card.
a cool thing.
Oh, Felix is on it.
Let's grab it here. All right.
Okay, let's shake them around. Make sure they're all mixed up.
Let's see what we got.
So these are people who have completed the 20 challenges. And Anne, you should be completing the 20 challenges. Now that I think of it, I didn't see you in there. Complete the 20 challenges, even just 10 minutes at it. Complete it. You can always go back, save it your favorites.
Anne is on Beginner's Journey 4, by the way. She had responded.
Good, good, Anne. Okay, well that's good too. There's a 5th journey. Don't stop at 4.
The winner is Larry.
Larry, congratulations. Good work, Larry. Okay, so I'll be sending Larry a $50 Amazon gift card. And for the rest of you, thanks for playing along. And the real winner is just the fact that you've spent time practicing and keep moving forward on the guitar. Good work.
Yeah, good job. I think that's it for today.
That's it for today. We'll be back again next month. It'll be the first Tuesday of August at 12 noon. I got that right. I don't remember the date, so I won't say anything right now. But we'll put it in there by the end of the day.
Yeah.
And thanks again for joining us today. We'll see you again soon, hopefully. Please add some stuff to the comments. Let us know some movies, some books that inspired you. Or if you have some other ideas on how you keep practicing fun. I really want to know. Bye for now.
Bye, y'all.
Take care.